What's going on, guys? Justin here. Thanks for stopping by. Let's talk about a movie.
Here, the punishment for any crime committed is death.
What did you say?
In Infinity Pool, James and M. Foster are enjoying an all-inclusive beach vacation in the fictional island of Lautoka when a fatal accident exposes the resort's perverse subculture of hedonistic tourism, reckless violence, and surreal horrors. So guys, welcome back. I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Before we jump into this review, I wanted to quickly promote my brand new podcast. We have 2 episodes are up now. The podcast is called Acquired Takes. This podcast stars me and my co-host Jason. Our last episode was our top 10 movies of the year, so we talked about our top 10 movies. I didn't do a dedicated top 10 video on my channel yet, that we saved that for the podcast. So we have 10 honorable mentions each, and then we have our top 10 favorite movies of 2022. I may have said 2023 there, but yeah, that's where you can find that. Also, the Rad Pack, my Rad Pack homies, me, Garrett from Born to Be Rad, and Mel from My Killer Podcast launched our first official podcast, the Rad Pack Podcast, that is also live on my channel. We actually all posted that podcast on all of our respective channels, so you can find it on 3 separate areas and check that out. And we're really happy about the way that came out. So we talk about our recent pickups, we talk about movie news, new movie releases, and then of course tons of random tangents where we just go off and talk about all kinds of movies. It's a really we feel we put out a really good product for you guys, and we hope you guys like it. So with all that said, let's go ahead and dive into my official review of Infinity Pool. This is the new film from Brandon Cronenberg. This is David Cronenberg's son. This is now his 3rd feature film. He had Antiviral, Possessor a couple years ago, and now Infinity Pool. Now, I have not seen Antiviral. I did see Possessor, and I love that movie. That movie showed real promise as Brandon Cronenberg, not only as a really interesting visual director, but also a writer. Now, Infinity Pool has a lot in common with Possessor. It's sometimes a little too much in common, actually, which we'll get into. This movie has a really interesting setup. It's really cool. You have Alexander Skarsgård and his wife. They've been married for 10 years, and they go to this really kind of reclusive resort. It's an exclusive reclusive resort because it's in this tiny little island called Lautoka, I think is what it's called. And on their last night there, they meet this couple, the one and only Mia Goth and her husband, and as well as their group of friends. They go out for a day of fun. Alexander Skarsgård's character is a writer. She comes up to him and she says, I really loved your book. Your book was amazing. I know people didn't like it. It didn't get good reviews. Mia Goth, loved your book. So they asked Skarsgård and his wife to go ahead and hang with them the next day. Let's go to a beach. Let's have a little picnic, if you will. And on the way home from that picnic, Skarsgård actually looks down for a second, trying to adjust the lights, and he looks up, and all of a sudden there's somebody in front of his car, and he just plows this person down in the middle of the road, killing them. And we come to find out that in this small island, they have some very peculiar ways of dealing with crime. Pretty much all crime is a death sentence, which is really bizarre. That some of the concepts of this movie are really out there, almost surrealistic. But the detective proposes to them this opportunity to get out of the crime. He represents this company that actually makes a copy of you. So if I were to go in this country and commit a crime and I'm sentenced to death, which is the penalty for almost any crime in this country, they create a double of you, and that double is the one who is murdered. That double of you is the one who actually receives that death penalty, which is just really bizarre. It's kind of an eye for an eye deal. And the justice in this case, the penalty for Skarsgård killing this man, he had a couple sons. So now the man killed his son is the one who carries out the death penalty with this large knife, repeatedly stabbing him. That's one of the elements that Cronenberg seems to be attached to. You saw that in Possessor, where there's a couple of really brutal, graphic stabbings. He just stabs Skarsgård's character a million times. It's also weird that Skarsgård is actually forced to watch his own double be killed. Now, Neon put out this movie. I would consider them, the movie studio Neon, to be almost like a little kid brother of A24, and they're becoming more prominent, and they produce a lot of very strange movies. There was a lot of headlines going around about Infinity Pool saying that it's the most disturbing movie you'll ever see. This movie is disgusting, it's disturbed, it shouldn't be seen, and all this, creating all this controversy, which is of course good promotion for the movie. Now, depending on your exposure to, or what you're into as far as disturbing content, this is definitely isn't the most disturbing movie that I've seen. Go check out Martyrs or a movie like that if you want to see something truly fucked up. I'd put this on the disturbing scale at about a 5, 6, maybe a light 7, because it is pretty visceral, depending on the audience member. It is disturbing, but it's not gonna be the most disturbing movie you've ever seen. Now, you'll notice usually when I love a movie, I come right out the gate when I talk about a movie and I'll say, oh my God, this movie was amazing. That's kind of how I thought I was going to leave the theater after seeing Infinity Pool. I built it up as I do with most movies, and especially with directors that I like. And although I didn't leave the theater disliking this movie, I did feel, and not even that I left the theater feeling that it fell flat for me. What I did feel is that it felt a little hollow, that it felt a little surface level and lacked the compelling, like, suspenseful storytelling that Possessor had. Possessor really blew me away. That involved Andrea Riseborough's character kind of implanting her subconscious into a surrogate character and carrying out these assassinations. For instance, if I was close to somebody that this person wanted murdered, Andrea Riseborough's character would burrow her subconscious into my brain and basically control my body. And that transformation process, that brought all these weird, trippy sequences, these psychedelic kind of strobe light, melty face sequences that in that movie were completely original and kind of blew me away because I'd never seen anything done quite like that. It was all in camera, really kind of abstract and artsy, kind of like an art installation filmed. In this movie, Brandon Cronenberg almost repeats these visual elements almost like exactly to a T how he did. So, and this happens several times as they go into this double making process to sort of create these doubles, and as they start taking these drugs, he sort of repeated himself a lot with these visual elements, so they didn't hit quite the same for me. And although the story is interesting, all that stuff is awesome, it's not told in a super interesting or suspenseful way, so it kind of just felt like everything just went scene to scene to scene. And although it was super weird and the performances are awesome, I love seeing Alexander Skarsgård kind of take these weird movies and just throwing himself into some weird places acting-wise, being extremely vulnerable. I love seeing that. All of it just felt a little forced. All of the disturbing elements to me felt a little try-hard. A lot of the weird kind of psychedelic scenes seemed again a little try-hard and kind of just unoriginal when you compare it to his own stuff. If you have not seen Possessor, I think this movie will be extremely intriguing for you and you'll want to see his other stuff. And in my opinion, Possessor is a better film all around. That's not to say that I would not recommend Infinity Pool. I definitely would recommend this movie, but to a smaller group of whoever's watching this video. If you are not into super like nonsensical bizarreness for the sake of being weird, if you're not into a lot of David Cronenberg stuff like Videodrome or even Crimes of the Future recently, these kind of bizarre art films, I don't think you're gonna like this movie. So I will recommend it, but I'll recommend it to a very specific audience that's even into stuff that's beyond A24 weirdness. This is way more out there than your Ari Aster, even Robert Eggers stuff. This movie is very, very weird, and to some audience members, this will be very, very disturbing because it is a fucked up movie. I'm not completely desensitized to seeing graphic violence and weird psychedelic elements, but it's just nothing that I've seen. It's just nothing that I haven't seen before, and especially in Brandon Cronenberg's other work. I think Brandon Cronenberg has a great career ahead of him. I think he's just going to need to kind of tell a more original story and try to think of some more unique ways visually to tell a story rather than just like macro close-ups every 5 seconds of eyeballs. And it just kind of felt like an advanced film school, art film, like a film thesis, his aesthetic. But all in all, I did like the movie. I didn't love it as much as I thought I was going to. But if you liked Possessor, I would definitely recommend seeing this. If you did see Possessor and you didn't like it, you're definitely not going to like this, so I would skip it. But otherwise, check it out. You know, it is interesting. It's worth a watch. So guys, thank you so much for checking out my review for Infinity Pool. Check out my other reviews. Check out my brand new podcast, the Rad Pack Podcast and Acquired Takes. And I'll see you next time, guys. Stay weird. Remember to always be yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.
Monster Face, the gruesome monster head you make and remake into the most monstrous monsters imaginable.
Now for the test. It works!
Monster Face comes with everything shown here.